After the success of Destroy All Monsters Melee, the team got back to work right away on a sequel. This would be important as the franchise at the time was going to be turning 50, and Toho was going to pull out all the stops. Massive merchandising for figures, including the 50th anniversary memorial box, a soundtrack collection that housed every single soundtrack of all the Godzilla movies, and a new film that was supposed to really end the series as a whole. And last but not least, of course, a video game tie-in. Yes, the game that many people will say is the best out of the trilogy. I am talking about Godzilla Save the Earth. I too, like many others, love this game. It took everything that Destroy All Monsters did and almost improved on every aspect. I still prefer Destroy All Monsters Melee, but Save the Earth is just as high on my list.
Godzilla Save the Earth is a fighting game developed by Pipeworks and distributed by Atari that is a sequel to the 2002 game Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee. The PlayStation 2 version was published on November 2nd, 2004 in North America, on November 9th, 2004 in the PAL Zone, and on December 10th, 2004 in Japan. The Xbox version was released on November 16th, 2004 in North America, and November 19th, 2004 in the PAL Zone.
The story mode for the game would kind of continue the story from Destroy All Monsters Melee, but you didn't really need to know the details of the last game to understand what's going on in this one. As like the last game, the story is not super important, but it did seem to take itself a little bit more serious with this game. The tone seemed to be a little bit more darker.
After failing to attack Earth, the Vortak return 2 years later with all the monsters they can control, as well as their greatest weapon, Space Godzilla. Regardless of which monster is chosen, the player assumes the role of a monster who has escaped control. The Vortak infiltrated human culture to steal G-cells in the original plot, which was significantly more intricate during production.
The game brought back many modes from the previous game and expanded them and also added some new ones. There's still a ton of content packed into this game, and it'll have you playing for hours.
The primary story mode of the game is Action Mode. The player chooses a monster to play as and must fight their way through various stages, each with an enemy monster. The player will occasionally find Challenge Mode stages, which grant bonus points if finished, but are not required to advance the story. The player will eventually reach the final stage, the Vortak Mothership, which usually contains Orga as the ultimate opponent. If the player beats Action Mode on hard using Godzilla 2000, a cutscene depicting Space Godzilla's shoulder crystals exploding in the middle of a canyon will play. The broken pieces then temporarily combined into a miniature black hole, sucking Space Godzilla in before the black hole fades away. Godzilla roars triumphantly, and the Vortak retreat to Earth. Challenge Mode is a secondary game mode consisting of special levels in which the player must perform a mission. These stages, unlike Action Mode stages, are not all dependent on fighting the opponent monster and may contain up to 4 different monsters at the same time. When playing in Action Mode, the player will periodically reach a Challenge Mode level, which when completed unlocks it for play in the Challenge Mode menu. If a player successfully completes a Challenge Mode stage, they will receive points to spend in-game. When these stages are encountered in Action Game, the player will control whichever monster they are currently using for the rest of the mode. Whereas if they are selected individually in the Challenge Mode menu, the player will play as Godzilla 2000. The lone exception is the Asteroid Field task, in which the player takes on a role of Mogira. This mode is notable for including boss monsters that are not playable in the game, such as Ibra, the Millennium, and Space Godzilla's flying form. The following are the numerous challenges and their in-game descriptions. Asteroid Field. As Mogira, patrol the asteroid field and destroy as many alien vehicles as possible, then you defeat the boss. In battleships, you destroy battleships for points. You earn 5,000 points before time is up. In Clone Attack, and he's been cloned. Destroy him and his clone before they can destroy you. In Demolition, you have to earn 15,000 destruction points before the timer runs out. In Monster Bowling, you knock down all opponents by throwing rocks at them before the timer runs out. In Monster Roundup, you throw 3 monsters into 3 separate pens before time is ran out. In the Mothership, you defeat Orga's 3 stages and escape the alien mothership. In Osaka Crunch, you destroy 70% of the city before the timer runs out. In Replicator, you defeat Mecha King Ghidorah and his clones. In the UFO Attack mission, you destroy the UFOs before they destroy the pyramid building. In Undersea Battle, you swim to the bottom of the ocean to find and destroy the Vortak's Hammer Sub. In Beryllium Basketball, You make as many baskets as you can in 3 minutes. The monster with the most points wins. Versus mode is a gaming mode in which the player can engage in a one-on-one battle as and against the monster of their choice. The user will have access to all monsters and stages that they have previously unlocked. Each battle's time restriction and number of rounds are adjustable. This mode can be played against either the AI or a human opponent. Melee mode, like Versus mode, allows the player to create custom battles with monsters and stages of their choice. Melee mode, on the other hand, allows you to include up to 4 monsters. The player can pick whether the match will be free-for-all or a team battle, and whether it will be decided to be knockout, combat points, or destruction points. The destruction option is akin to Godzilla Destroy Monsters Melee's Destruction mode, in which the player competes against other monsters to score the most points. This mode, like Versus mode, can be played with 1 or 2 players. Survival mode is a single-player, single-stage, of the player's choosing, gaming mode in which the player must fight as many opponents as possible before the health of the monster is fully depleted. Each opponent must be defeated within 3 minutes or the match is automatically forfeited. The player's score is determined by how many monsters are defeated in a row and how quickly they are defeated. After certain matches, the player's monster's health bar is partially replenished. However, the amount of health received gradually diminishes as one advances.
This time around, unlocking things would be a bit different. Instead of unlocking monsters and stages by playing the adventure mode, or by finding gallery items by finding the Atari symbol by destroyed buildings, there is actually a point system in Save the Earth. The point system is a currency that you will gather while playing through the game. This will allow you to unlock characters, arenas, gallery items, all that kind of stuff.
This menu allows the player to store and use points earned in other game modes to acquire new playable monsters, stages for Versus and Melee modes, gallery items, or Godzilla Final War stills and concept art. This menu contains a range of things packed in packaging with question marks icon in green, yellow, and red. Purchasing a pack grants the player access to single pre-selected characters or stages, with the opportunity to purchase more character or stages in the pack at a later date. The gallery mode is back with even more cool concept art and production images. Next to this, though, is the Final Wars collection. Since this game was releasing the same year as Godzilla Final Wars, the devs put a lot of cool concept and production images into the game, and that would need to be unlocked.
The game's roster of monsters have been expanded and also been improved on from the last game. Now almost doubling the size that Destroy All Monsters Melee was, all monsters are unique in their own way. There are no cloned characters in this game.
Godzilla Save the Earth contains a total of 19 playable monsters, 6 of which are available from the start and the other 13 of which must be unlocked by purchasing monster packages. The game's roster contains Anguirus, Baragon, Destroya, Gigan, Godzilla 2000, Godzilla 90s, Jet Jaguar, King Ghidorah, Mecha King Ghidorah, Mechagodzilla 2, Kiryu, Megaguirus, Megalon, Mogira, Mothra, Orga, Rodan, and Space Godzilla. Another addition to this game is that each playable monster has 4 different colors to choose from. These are only visible in Melee mode when numerous players choose the same character though. Player 1 will be blue, player 2 will be green, player 3 will be orange, and the player 4 will be red. The monsters that are unplayable but make an appearance are Batra, who replaces Mothra with the Airstrike power-up, Biollante, which is technically in the game's code but not available to play as, although thanks to the modding community, players have found a way to play as Biollante. Ibra, who appears as a boss fight in the challenge mode Underseas Battle mission, Meganula, which is shown in Megaguirus' Rage Attack, Millennium, who appears as a boss fight in the challenge mode Mothership mission, and Space Godzilla's flying form, who is the boss in the challenge mode mission Asteroid Field. Along with monsters who are unplayable, just like Destroy All Monsters Melee, there were many scrapped or unused monsters for the game. Batra was supposed to be playable after the Super X3, but it ended up being an airstrike. Batra was made playable in the PlayStation 2 edition of Godzilla Unleashed, the game's sequel. Biollante fell behind schedule, and as a result, Atari was unable to obtain the license in time, even though it was eventually completed and is still there in the game's code. Biollante is the only monster in any of the Atari Pipeworks Godzilla games that was fully finished but not included in the final game. Hackers using the PlayStation 2 emulator PCSX2 were able to retrieve Biollante's data and make her playable in 2014. She later appeared as a playable character in Godzilla Unleashed for the Wii. Mogira was supposed to be able to convert into Star Falcon as an additional mode. Although it's not playable, its model can be obtained by hacking. It's unknown whether Land Mogira would have been included, or how the vehicle would have been handled. Godzilla 1954 was supposed to be a secret character, but it didn't make the cut due to the existence of 2 other Godzillas. He later appeared as a playable character in Godzilla Unleashed for the Wii. Due to the restrictions of the consoles, Hedorah was highly considered, but was not included. Due to the presence of 2 other incarnations of Mechagodzilla, Showa Mechagodzilla was meant to be a secret character, but did not make the cut. It was eventually included as a playable character for the Wii edition of Godzilla Unleashed, along with many other unused combatants from Godzilla Save the Earth. Rainbow Mothra appears on the game's box image, however this is likely an art error. During an interview for Godzilla Unleashed, Simon Strange stated that the rebirth of Mothra characters would not be permitted because Toho considered it a separate series. According to Simon Strange, Super Mechagodzilla was also proposed. Titanosaurus was depicted in concept art for the game and according to Simon Strange, was intended to be a warrior. He later appeared as a playable character in Godzilla Unleashed. Varan was not considered directly, but according to Simon Strange, he would have been their next choice. He was later made playable in Godzilla Unleashed.
Even though this time around the soundtrack was made by a different composer, the music still is amazing. One thing that I noticed with this game is that the music seems to have a heavier tone to it, and the music seems to have a slower tempo in some of the pieces. I do like Melee's soundtrack a little more, but Save the Earth is still pretty much up there.
The in-game soundtrack for Godzilla Save the Earth was composed by Ron Fish. The soundtrack has never been officially released separately from the game.
With the new characters, also came new arenas to fight in. Some cities return, but are also reworked, and they did away with certain sections of the arenas like before. Now every arena counted as one area.
The game features a total of 16 different fighting stages, including 9 standard size arenas and 7 smaller sub-arena variations. Most of the stages in the game have options for switching between day and night settings. In the game we have Boston, the boxing ring that makes a return, Los Angeles, London, Monster Island, Mothership, New York, Osaka, San Francisco, and Tokyo. There were also scrapped arenas for the game. 2 pieces of concept art depict a battle between Titanosaurus and other monsters on an ice level in Antarctica. The second gives a description of the level's gameplay. It depicts Godzilla 2000 collapsing into an ice flow while Mechagodzilla 3 looks on. It says, "Ice flow dangers can cause monsters to fall. They will reappear in the arena's ocean segment." The city of Las Vegas can be seen in the game's concept art. Godzilla 90s is depicted holding the Hard Rock Hotel's guitar, ready to use it against Mecha King Ghidorah. There was also a Rodan Challenge Mode rail shooter level that have been shown in concept art. It was to function similarly to Godzilla 2000 and Moguera, except this time it's in a desert setting. The statue level, which was briefly detailed in an interview and depicted in concept art. This would have featured fighting Destroya while attempting to activate a Jet Jaguar statue. A Mount Fuji level was meant to serve as the last arena for story mode, where the player would face off against various monsters before facing off against Space Godzilla. Many of the original game elements were dropped during development owing to a combination of time restrictions and license concerns. This could be because Atari rushed the game to coincide with the release of Godzilla Final Wars in 2004. Despite being fully developed, Biollante was cancelled before release, and the majority of the game's story was eliminated, even though a significant amount of time was spent on the story mode. Godzilla Save the Earth, according to Simon Strange, was not a feel-good production like Destroy All Monsters Melee was. Here's some cool trivia provided by Wikizilla. The Japanese box cover for this game depicts the 2001 versions of King Ghidorah and Mothra. However, the North American box art depicts Rainbow Mothra and Mecha King Ghidorah with biological heads resembling the Showa King Ghidorah. When Anguirus' roar was fully charged, it produced a sort of shockwave effect. Because the waves were not drawn accurately from all angles, they were cut. The Xbox version is still playable on the 360 thanks to backwards compatibility.
An interesting fact is that Save the Earth actually didn't get a portable tie-in spin-off, but the game was a major improvement compared to Melee, and it's still beloved by many fans. Even to this day, this game is still being played at tournaments at G-Fest during every summer. After this success, you'd think that a third game would be a home run and an easy win for them. They would continue to improve and expand on the games that came before, right? Well, tune into part 3, and we'll dive into the final entry into this trilogy, with Godzilla Unleashed.